Hi guys, welcome to Christy's Book Corner. Today we're going to continue with part 3 of chapter 10 of our book, Finding Jacob Wetterling by Robert M. Dudley. I almost said Rodney. Okay, let's start. Let's get to it. Heinrich was present for the Heinrich was present for the July 28, 2015 search of his home, and he spoke with investigators during the search. He admitted that he had child porn and suggested that investigators would find materials that would be pretty damning when confronted about pictures of juvenile boys in the 3-ring binders. He had told investigators that he might have downloaded the pictures from the internet years ago when he had internet access. He said he printed the images to converse storage capacities on his computer hard drive. He proclaimed himself to be addicted to child pornography when he had internet access and referred to himself as a dirty old man. Shortly after the search of Heinrich's home, investigators were able to recover Heinrich's silver handgun that had been looking for. It was a snub-nose 38 caliber Smith & Wesson. On October 27, 2015, said St. Cloud-based FBI Special Agent Sean Ball filed a criminal complaint in the United States District Court for the arrest of Daniel James Heinrich. In the criminal complaint, Agent Ball noted that statements in the affidavit were based on his investigation and information provided from other FBI special agents. He also noted that the affidavit did not include all the known facts concerning the investigation, but only those facts necessary to establish probable case for Heinrich's arrest. Ball's wording in the complaint seemed to suggest a contradiction to Janelle Kendall's statement that the warrants contained all there was to know about Heinrich. Daniel James Heinrich was arrested at home on Wednesday, October 28, 2015, and a news conference announcing Heinrich's arrest was held at 2 p.m. on Thursday, October 29, 2015, 26 years and 1 week after Jacob Wetterling's abduction. The news conference was a joint effort between the U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI, the Minnesota BCA, and the SCSO. The press conference provided a summary of 5 counts of child pornography charges that had been filed against Danny Heinrich, while authorities stated that Danny Heinrich had been identified as a person of interest in Jacob's abduction. They repeated caution that Heinrich had never been charged with any crimes related to Jacob's case, and that the investigation remained open and active. U.S. Attorney Andrew Ledger said that Danny Heinrich had denied any involvement in Jacob Wetterling's kidnapping. Later, "Let me be very clear," Ledger told the media. The defiant has denied any involvement in the disappearance of Jacob Wetterling and is not charged at this time with any crime related to that disappearance. Ledger added the investigators were actively pursuing Heinrich and encouraged the public to contact police with any information. "I would strongly encourage anyone with knowledge of Danny Heinrich's activities during the late 1980s and early 1990s to make contact with our investigators," Ledger said. "Even if you don't believe that information is relevant, please let our investigators make that determination." When the press conference was open to questions from reporters, the first question asked was whether it was true that Danny Heinrich was known in 1989 to drive a dark-colored four-door oak door wearing camouflage clothing, owned handheld police scanners, and spoke in a deep, raspy voice. The question was strikingly similar to how Dorn Hart had described Danny Heinrich in the Hart notes that had been drafted by a private investigator in February 1990. Those same notes indicated that Hart had abused Danny Heinrich when he was a minor. Multiple media reports in November 2015 confirmed that Durant Hart did abuse Danny Heinrich. If Danny Heinrich was indeed the man responsible for Jacob's and Jared's abduction and for the Painesville incidences, then it would be seem that Heinrich could continue the cycle of abuse. Ironically, that is the very same cycle of abuse that had been the bedrock of the teachings of the Jacob Wetterling Foundation for years. The criminal complaint against Heinrich clearly stated that investigators went to Heinrich's home in July 2015 looking for evidence related to Jared's kidnapping and assault and Jacob Wetterling's abduction. The complaint summarized Jared's abduction and assault as well as Jacob's abduction. It confirmed that investigators had found a set of shoe impressions that were similar to shoes worn by Jacob at the time of his abduction. The complaint further detailed the consistency between the tire tread patterns and tire size found at the scene of the crime and the rear tires from Danny Heinrich's car. Heinrich's right shoe corresponds in size and design to an impression found at the abduction site. Agent Ball explained that the consistent tire and shoe prints could not constitute an exact match because such a match would require the presence of a unique scuff wear mark or divot in the items themselves, and not such unique markings were present. Ball concluded, however, that the non-unique class characteristics of size, shoe pattern, and tread pattern of each appear to be the same. Agent Ball's criminal complaints also refer to the January 24th, 1990 search of Howard Heinrich's home. He specified the items of Danny Heinrich's clothing that were consistent with what Jared had described as his assailant wearing. The complaint also referenced photos of a boy dressed in underwear and a boy coming out of the shower wrapped in a towel. Following Danny Heinrich's arrest, Stearns County Attorney Janelle Kendall confirmed that what few media outlets had acknowledged prior to Heinrich's arrest, and what most of the general public had been unaware of, that the Painesville case had been investigated since the beginning, well before those incidents became publicized again in 2014. The Painesville cluster, as we've referred to it for years, Kendall said, there isn't proof beyond a reasonable doubt who did that. The Painesville cases could never be prosecuted even if the search of Heinrich's home turned up evidence of his involvement in those incidences, because the statute of limitations on those cases had expired years earlier. In fact, despite the 100% DNA match linking Danny Heinrich to Jared's assault, that case could not be prosecuted either again, due to the state of limitations established by legislation. The state's statute in Jared's case expired in 1998. The statute of limitations was indicated in 2000 due to advancements of modern DNA technology being reflected in new legislation. However, that the new legislation could not bridge the gap between the 1998 expiration of the statute of limitations and the law change in 2000. We are almost done this chapter. Despite the fact that Jared's case and the Painesville case could never be prosecuted, Kendall pointed out that it was still relevant for investigators to find evidence of Heinrich's involvement in those cases. If investigators could prove that Heinrich was involved in any of all of those incidences, that evidence could be used from considering sentencing of Heinrich for any other crimes he would be convicted of during future court proceedings. Kendall's comments about the Painesville cases being investigated for years echoed what Stearns County Sheriff John Sanner has said several times since the renewed interest in the Painesville cases, that the Painesville cluster of assaults had been investigated many times over the years. That's not news, Sanner said at the Painesville cases and their possible connection to Jacob Wetterling's abduction. That's been looked at many different times. Sanner also seemed to downplay the significance of Hart notes that had resurfaced in summer of 2014. He said investigators had the notes years ago, and added that they don't tell us anything we didn't already know. Media speculation from May 2014 and through 2015 implied that the Painesville cases had never been investigated, and many in the general public seemed to buy into that speculation. While it's true that the media frenzy about the Painesville cases led to more victims coming forward to tell their stories, none that had changed the fact that the Painesville cluster had been investigated by the Painesville Police Department since 1986 and by the CSCO since at least January 1989, and by the Minnesota BCA and the FBI immediately after Jacob's Wetterling's kidnapping. In fact, investigators had identified Danny Heinrich as a suspect in those cases, as well as Jared's and Jacob's cases. More than 26 years before investigators arrested him on October 28, 2015, Stearns County officials said that all of these stories had come out during the late half of 2014 and 2015, had been known all along by investigators. Heinrich, the Painesville cluster of assaults, the Hart notes, all of it was known to Stearns County for many years. The Painesville Press had run no less than a handful of front-page stories about Painesville assaults. The very first article in 1987 directed tipsters to call Crime Stoppers, a Stearns County crime program with information that is a long indication that the Painesville Police Department had enlisted the help of Stearns County from the very beginning of those cases. All of this further suggests that it was the FBI's involvement in the case that finally propelled the decades-old case toward resolution. Danny Heinrich made a court appearance on November 4, 2015. Federal Magistrate Judge Tony Luang listened to prosecutors and witnesses who described the evidence found in Heinrich's home on July 28, 2015. Through the testimony of FBI agent Shane Ball, Judge Lewin halted proceedings to ask Ball why investigators were focused on Danny Heinrich. Ball explained that investigators had decided to review the entire Wetterling case a year ago, and by November they had decided to focus their attention on Heinrich. When we got into Mr. Heinrich, it wasn't clear why we weren't still looking at him as a suspect, Ball told Judge Lewin. Judge Lewin ordered Heinrich to remain in custody at the Sherburne County Jail pending trial. Lewin relied on FBI agent Shane Ball's testimony and concluded that Heinrich represented a danger to the community. The evidence creates a chilling context and a gravity of danger to the community, Judge Lewin said of Daniel Heinrich. He has a long history of attracting and fixation on young boys. Although it would take several months for the information to surface, Danny Heinrich mentioned another man's name while being transported by U.S. Marshals between the courthouse and the Sherborne County Jail. The man, who was about Heinrich's age, had lived in Howick, Minnesota at the time of Jacob's abduction. While some media speculated behind the scenes that this unnamed man may have been an accomplice of Heinrich, this man had an alibi for the night that Jacob was kidnapped. It was more likely that the man may have had information about Heinrich, or perhaps he unknowingly had evidence in the case. On December 16, 2015, U.S. Attorney Andrew Lunger announced an incident against Danny James Heinrich, amending the original charges to include an additional 20 counts of child pornography. That brought the total number of federal charges against Heinrich to 25. Heinrich's trial on the federal pornography charges was scheduled for July 11, 2016 in Minneapolis. He pleaded not guilty to the child pornography charges during a February 22, 2016 court appearance. Heinrich continued to deny involvement in the kidnapping of Jacob Wetterling. Investigators were presumably continued to interview Danny Heinrich and working to get him to confess to the kidnapping of Jacob Wetterling. A crime conviction on the substantial slate of child pornography charges facing Heinrich would likely mean that Heinrich would spend at least 20 years in prison. Getting a confession from Heinrich would be problematic for prosecutors, because Heinrich would have no incentive to confess unless the prosecution agreed to reduction of charges or perhaps offer immunity in Jacob's case. Since the pornography cases were filed in federal court, prosecutors only offer source of leverage may be negotiation or a more favorable prison site. Should Heinrich be convicted on the pornography charges? Pam Jansen was about Stearns County's lead detective on the Wetterling investigation since 1998. Retired in January 2016, longtime Sheriff Deputy Bruce Batchold replaced Jansen as the lead investigator on the case. That change in leadership brought Batchold full circle, as he was the first officer on the scene of when Jacob Wetterling was taken. That's the end of Chapter 10. We are done. Thank you for watching Part 3 of Chapter 10. Stay tuned. Tomorrow will be Chapter 11. A short chapter, somewhat short chapter. Please subscribe. Hit that subscribe button for more videos. And to get notified when I upload more videos, hit the notifications bell. And if you like the videos, pop a like. That's used for my Maze Runner Ford. My Maze Ford Gaming. That's my other YouTube channel. But anyway, pop a like and have nice comments, and remember to dare to dream. Can't say and